All right, we'll get started in just a minute. I'm just making some coffee. I rearranged my screen a little bit for this session and going forward. Today we were all over the place, and seeing some more detail in the order flow has been advantageous. So people are still drifting in. So give me a minute here, and then we'll get started. Gonna get my coffee also, and then I will repeat what I was saying, and we'll pick up there. If you're just joining us, come on in. We'll start in a minute. I kind of had started and then I unstarted because people are still coming in. I see you, puppy. I know. We'll go in a little while. I'm going to teach a class now. Oh, coffee is brewing. Very interesting day. This could be our best opportunity to see some craziness today, given all this movement so far. Although it it feels like more movement than it is, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about. This is kind of classic correction slash price discovery, baking in stuff. And one of the signs to look for when ES starts trading like NQ and moving, sharply and suddenly it ledges and plowing through liquidity, and when you start seeing that, that is a really good sign that the market's exploring value, because that's not typical, and we're seeing a lot of that today. So we also have more earnings after the close. The big ones start tomorrow, but there's a little bit today. So anyway, I have my coffee. I'm getting a side eye look from the dog because she wants to go out, but we're not going to do that right now. Lie down, sweetie. Good girl. All right. So let's see who's not here yet. We'll wait another couple of minutes. It's only 2 minutes after the bottom of the hour. So anyway, I rearranged my screen a little bit. I'll start with that. And I did that for two reasons. Number one, I'm finding, oh, now I have everybody. Okay, come on, let's go out in the hallway. Good boy. I'm finding that with this much movement, I want to see more detail in the volume profile. And I also want to see more detail in the liquidity and the history of the liquidity. So for that reason, I got rid of one more dome and I kind of spread out the liquidity maps, the Auction Vista heat maps. And I also spread out my extremes a little bit, made the domes a little wider, and made my 15-second LRC view a little bit bigger. And the reason, again, is twofold. Number one, there's less to look at. It's simpler. I can still trade YM simply by, I'm watching it on my other monitors. I can just change one of the domes if I wanted to do that. But like I said in the announcement for class today, when you're new, you really want to try to focus on keeping things as simple and minimalist as you can. And particularly when it comes to learning an instrument's personality, you really need to watch an instrument a lot. And you hear me talking about this all the time. I was doing it this morning. It's about practice, and having more to look at makes it harder to practice. There's no question about that. So I figured, as we're going to talk more about tactics today, we started that a little bit yesterday, and because we have a very, very good day setting up here, I decided to do that. And it's also a little more symmetrical this way, which, if you're OCD like me, that feels a little better. Putting the common stuff in the middle. Also, if you're wondering where my tick is for the S&P and for the NQ, it's right there in a little tiny box under the trade window. It doesn't need a lot of space, and so that kind of worked out good to stick it there. So that's the tick for the NASDAQ 100, and this is the tick for the S&P 500. And as you know, I watch the broader market, but I also watch those if I'm scalping particularly. One thing I still need to get right here is I have this slightly over further to the left. When it's got a minus sign, it doesn't quite fit. So there we go. All right. Anyway, so today, other things that I'm doing for this session. Oh, let me let Donna in. And there's Cal also. I'm going to make a couple of you guys co-hosts. So if you see somebody in the waiting room, please just let them in. I'm not really policing who's coming and going, and I don't have JVC co-hosting today. So, okay. So I see a question. Let's see. When I expanded the domes to see more liquidity, it's not more liquidity, it's the more history of the liquidity. So it's just wider. So I can see the pattern and the liquidity and price have followed over a little bit more time. That's all it is. And it's a little more context for the liquidity, because one of the reasons I did this, if you look at the NQ liquidity on the left, it's a sloppy mess. And ES is behaving relatively symmetrically as it generally does, but it was a sloppy mess when we had that big push down also. And so it's easy to see sloppy mess when you can see it transition from organized to sloppy mess, or vice versa. So as it kind of organizes into good levels of liquidity, it gets easier to see. And that's what I meant when I said that a liquidity map like this, you don't read it like a chart. It's it's left to right and historical like a chart in that sense, but what you're looking for is how price has moved toward and to and from liquidity, and did it trade or not? Remember, that's what I'm looking for. And then what happens after it traded? So here again, we're getting more examples of that, David. So for example, down right here at the most recent low, we traded down to the liquidity. Some of it traded, some of it moved down, price turned, and then the liquidity came right back up. So that's not real strong liquidity, because it was willing to move out of the way, most of it. And I could also make my circles a little fewer, or more, you can make it so there's more circles, and we would see one there. See, those are the little high volume nodes. And right now I've got that on 3 because I'm kind of trying to see the bigger ones. But when we have changing conditions like this, the liquidity maps sometimes need to be tuned a little bit. And so again, what I was trying to do is by looking at more history, I was trying to see if there was less of a need to fool with it during the session. And I haven't had to change the settings. They're still on 10 and 4 on both sides. So anyway, let's continue. A couple of reasons that today could be an interesting close. We've had, it's not right now, but we have had cumulative delta be pretty negative, and we've had some pretty aggressive moves down. This big sharp move that we just had, that got us to SD2, even though SD2 was dropping because the VWAP was dropping, that spot was in play on both. And it came when there was a little bit of silly news. One of the less important news items was going across the tape. And it was a really, really good opportunity. And again, that was one of the reasons I'm doing this. I was watching that, and I'm going to switch to 1 minute here, and you'll see the granularity of that turn. And it's a lot easier to see when you have a little more data. See, so this was it right here. And you can see it was selling off really hard. It flattened out, and then look what happened right there. We started trading on the ask, and price started going up, which means sellers were able to lift the ask. So that was a much clearer way of seeing that inflection point and whether it was the spot to get long or not. Because on the way down there, let me zoom back out. On the way down there, it kept going through any sort of lows, but not with that kind of aggression. It was like it did that once early in the session, and then it kind of went sideways for a while, and then we got it again. But this one didn't produce a reversal, the earlier one. It tried to bounce there, and it barely did. See? So, and then it continued down. So again, this was early in the session. This was just after the initial balance. That was our first initial balance break right there. So this just gives a little more context. By the way, look at the opening 15. It was a really good short setup. If you missed it, We talked about it this morning too. You could also play the bounce a little bit in NQ, but the story the market was telling us on the way down was that we weren't done going down yet. And then again, by looking at that in a little more detail at that one spot, let's do the same thing over here in NQ. You'll see it. You can see where it rolled over. See the same thing right here. We got that extreme. It stopped going down, and then we started trading on the ask as price went up. And that's what you're looking for. And that had not happened until that point really significantly. See all the other spots, it kept pushing down on the ask on the bid very heavily. So slamming the bid, as we call it. So just really interesting conditions today, really educational conditions. A lot of accounts getting blown up today, I'm sure, because of the sudden sharp movement. But if you look at the net of where we are, that this is in the middle now, my little quote board, we have a range of 500 points in NQ, which is a change. At the moment, we're down 200. We've been further down, obviously, and that's only 1%. So, going into the close, this could double easily if this continues. YM has held up all day. I'm watching it again on my other screen. I'll show you in a second. And RTY has struggled kind of with the other ones. Here, let's look at, here's all 4 indexes on a 5-minute. And you can see YM is the strongest, but it's still kind of just holding on to value on +1 here, SD1, and RTY is kind of flat. So, and there's a reason, by the way, all this is going on. If you look at the heat map, it's all NVIDIA again. NVIDIA is down like almost 5%, and there's a couple of other big ones down with it. And so that's why the NASDAQ's going down so hard. There's just only PayPal, nothing really big going up, but the S&Ps do have some things that are strong to kind of balance it off. So that's one of the reasons the trade over in ES has been a good opportunity. So, and if I posted some of my trades from this morning, I wanted you guys to just see what I had been thinking there. I was playing both ways. Let me bring that post up. But since then, I switched back to a cash account, believe it or not. I was watching Formula One also, because there's so much opportunity here. I didn't want to trade it in an eval or a PA, so I came back to my cash accounts. And so that's where we are now. But so you can see I've been trading NQ, MNQ, ES, no MES. I pretty much am leaving that alone. And I did get off sides once pretty badly here, but in the course of the day, it didn't really make too bad an impact. So that's kind of what we're looking to do here going into the close today. I want to talk more tactics. We're in ES over here, not MES. So we're going to have to respect the size. And I'm in MNQ with NQ data on this dome. And again, the idea here is to do one of two things. If we play in NQ, MNQ, I'm going to do the up to 10 micros, kind of the class title approach, very low risk. And if I don't see any trades that qualify for that, I'm just not going to do any, but I'm going to explain whether I see them or not. Because again, remember, we're talking tactics today, and you have to understand kind of the strategy of the setups first. And then tactics is the hard part. You have to really learn that and then just practice. So hearing it repeatedly does help. And doing it repeatedly obviously helps. So we'll trade 1 to 10 micros over on the MNQ dome. On the ES dome, we'll scalp for ticks. And remember, 4 ticks in ES is $50. 2 ticks is $25. The commission's $4. So even 1 tick at $12.50 gives you, $8 profit. So it is profitable to scalp ES for a tick. It's not ideal, but sometimes you can do it with some size and it really pays off. I doubt we'll get that today because ES has been trading like MES or like NQ. It's been moving a lot. So I'm hoping we're going to get some really good opportunities to play some 1+1 kind of scale over there in ES. And what I mean by that, 1+1 is just my way of saying, if I find a good setup, I want to take the trade and then be willing to add to it to the scale that I went into it, but not much more than that. And so it's kind of a way of following rules if you're in an eval or a PA, and it's also a way of managing risk and not getting stubborn in a position. And again, the movement today is such that you shouldn't need to use more than 1+1s to get into a position in ES. If it's not working right away, you should get the heck out of the way. Trying to scale in ES is just going to be suicidal because the way it's getting on the other side of liquidity when it really gets moving. And then it's not salvageable. You just have to take your loss and move on, which is a good skill to practice also, but hopefully we won't practice that too much going into this closing session. We'll practice trading the range setups with micros in NQ, MNQ, and we'll see what we can do with scalping the quarter numbers and some inflection points in ES. So that's the plan. What is it, 11:45 my time? So should be getting moving here pretty soon. Let's scope out where ES is. We're on 72.5, 72. There's liquidity down here at 70, but it's kind of moving down. Look at the volume profile, though. There's volume everywhere. Here's the VWAP up here, but the value area goes all the way down here to the low. That's really dangerous. Remember what I've said about dynamic ranges? That's the problem in ES right now. We have a range that's 90 points. So trying to scalp for ticks, it could easily move 2 or 3 points suddenly for no reason. The range is big enough that that doesn't really mean anything. So that's what I mean when I talk about the dynamic range. So the only place it's going to really be gameable to scalp ES is when it's near a significant high volume node or a ledge of the session. And so far, we're nowhere near any of those. So let's watch it. Also, it's nowhere near an extreme. If you look on the plots of the extremes, we've been down there, though, and I wouldn't be shocked at all with these conditions if we're down there again. Look at the advanced decline. Again, remember I mentioned this morning. We opened at plus 1,200 and we sold off all day. And when internals do that, that's a weak market. When equities open strong and sell off. Strong markets open strong and get stronger, or they open weak and get stronger. But this is sloppy. And again, it's being driven by big tech, particularly NVIDIA. But, Microsoft's down a little bit, Qualcomm's down a little bit, CrowdStrike, Tesla, a few other things are down. Procter & Gamble's down, Merck. And don't forget, we have earnings. Today is when the bigger ones start, but the biggest 2 days is tomorrow and Thursday. Are tomorrow and Thursday. So let's just look real quickly. So today's Tuesday. We do have AMD and Microsoft. And again, those are kind of under pressure right now. Pinterest isn't such a big deal. Yeah, Electronic Arts. So there's some decent ones. And then tomorrow after the close on Thursday, real big. And tomorrow's FOMC. And Friday is NFP. So, ain't nothing but a party. If again, there's plenty of stuff going on to warrant being really patient and wait for good setups. So remember what I was just saying about ES. If we traded toward a big high volume node, well, where is one? That's the problem. I mean, we're in the middle of this giant one, and there's just no place that really logically looks like, you'd find a lot of buyers there. Here's the session profile for ES, and we're in the middle, and there's kind of giant volume on either side of us here, and there isn't really a lot of excess. There's a big low volume node here, and then there's a bunch of volume up here at the high. So this is not a well-organized market. This is a market that's trying to find value and range, and you can see it's pushing down to the edge of the statistical range right now. Again, with this much of a daily range, a session range, the size, the LRC boundaries aren't going to be as important because those are the short-term range. But again, the range is so big today that any short-term range, except ones on big high volume nodes or boundaries, it's extremes or the edge of the profile, something significant, the VWAP, something. Absent that, the ranges are pretty much subject to change pretty quickly. And we saw that a lot on the way down. So I'm kind of hoping patiently that we'll get a big move down like we're getting right now, and we'll be able to find a tradable low using the tool that I was just showing you. Oh, and that's the other thing I want to do today. Now that I simplified my screen a little bit, I want to review tools. So it's a good time to do that. Remember, we did that a week ago, Monday, of what I'm looking at the different things. So now I'm just going to kind of talk to it as I'm looking for trades. So I just zoomed this out back to 1 minute, and that way I can watch and see the pattern if we get to an extreme. Right now, we're not anywhere near one, but we'll watch that. And by the way, that recording where I showed you my other screen, I'm sorry that got messed up. I know Billy was asking about that. If I don't start and stop the recording in the right sequence and I change screens, it ruins the resolution. So I'm going to try not to do that again. I kind of figured I did that as soon as I did it, I remembered that, and JVC has scolded me. So anyway, hopefully I don't screw up any more recordings. We like to have good recordings from each class like this that we do to put in the library for posterity and posteriors. All right, so what else is going on? I'm watching the 30-minute rotations over on my other monitor, and when we got to the low, that was the other thing. If you're a structural person, we had a really pretty price rejector on the 30-minute at the low. And so that kind of just screamed, it's worth getting long down there. And again, you want to see those things kind of coincide. So what are those things? Well, remember this at the bottom of my extremes chart, that's bar delta. So when that rolls over and trades on the other side of whatever side it was trading on, so this was coming down, it was trading on the bid heavily. It stopped trading on the bid, it started trading on the ask, and they were able to lift the price up. So that is a really clear high volume reversal because sellers could lift their prices. They could raise prices. And that was kind of the first spot they could do that was right here. And again, you can see it right there happening. And if you zoom in, you can even see it more, see? So it's just going from being heavily trading on the bid, pushing price down, price stops going down, then we trade on the ask and sellers can raise prices. And so that's where you want to go the other way, obviously. So up here, we're looking at the same thing with just the LRCs on it. Again, that's a statistical evaluation of the short-term range. And again, bar by bar delta, but these are 15-second bars. So you can see those things happening, but they kind of go back and forth here a little more. So just because it trades blue here doesn't mean you automatically go the other way. You're looking for it to kind of find a tradable low. And also by having a little more space here, I can compare previous pushes down a little bit and see how how aggressive it got on the buy side once we established a low. That's not happening over here. So you can compare easily. And so that's another advantage of having a little bit more space for these, stretching them out a little bit wider. So anyway, let's keep an eye out for that. That's what we're watching on those two Sierra charts. There's no news coming up, but I always keep my news front and center to keep me from getting a position on in front of news. You can see the internals are still weak, opened strong and got weaker, but they're not even negative, just kind of flat. And mostly, again, that's big tech, mostly NVIDIA. So that's the tools. Over here, this is important. This is the flip chart of the order book. So that's the stacking and pulling net of 5 levels and kind of a bull bear assessment of it. And again, when you get to a point like this where it's turning over, the flip chart will turn over also pretty aggressively. It'll do that like it's doing right now. So when that coincides with that and that, that's usually a good spot. And also the bottom one is, this is cumulative delta, which is going down again, which is good. We might be able to get some more short squeezes. And this is the volume. So when volume peaks, that's often a turning point. See right here, pushed into liquidity, volume peaked, and then it reversed to where we are now. So not a huge bounce, but you could see a bounce coming there. And this is what I mean when I tell you guys, if you know what you're looking for, you can see short squeezes coming. Remember, I said that a bunch of times yesterday and in other sessions. So you want to look for a place where the sellers can't push the price down any farther and the bid starts getting big and the ask gets lifted and they pull on the ask side and they stack on the bid side. This is the ask side, this is the bid side. Here's one happening right now. So this time of day, with the cumulative delta getting more extreme on the negative, we should get some short squeeze action going into the close, particularly if we can get a lot lower down. So Typically, we would push the low extremes, maybe even to a new low with a day with this bigger range. And then that would be a right place to look for a short squeeze reversal. So that's the plan. Let's put this back to the current bar and we'll see what we get. Again, you want to be nimble on a day like this. I am trading the minis over here. So if I trade ES, it's got to be a really good spot. Now, look at what it did here. Here's a high volume node that it held just there. And that was what? 63, not a 62 and a half, not a particularly interesting spot, but that's where the liquidity was. And we traded into it and it held. See, so that's what I mean when I'm see more history of the liquidity. I can see that pattern and see if that continues. See, now they're trying to shift down, but there's still some holding. So, you could nibble in a place like that based on that. And on a day like this, though, you got to be careful with too much nibbling. You can get run over. But going into the close and settlement, we're likely to see squeezes off of that pattern. So you want to watch for that at the low end of the range and see if it does, in fact, squeeze off of it. So where might it do it from? Maybe right here now. Let's order at 65. This is a better setup here where that old liquidity got traded, but the liquidity is kind of getting a little bit more bold right above that. So this is about the first spot. It's interesting here, 65, but you have to respect how low it could go here. I mean, the bottom could fall out and it has several times today. So, if you're going to do a trade like this, you got to be really nimble. And if you're wrong, get out of the way really quickly and not try to scale it at all. So that one might be a little ambitious, but this spot is actually interesting, a little higher up, like right there. So we could be patient and try to get that. Let's see if that works. Again, I'm literally talking you through what my thinking process is if I'm doing this. Yes, Alfredo, I do know how to fix that. You got to go to Journalytics. It's based on the time you set in Journalytics, that time zone. So if you look at your Journalytics page, you'll see under settings, there's a place you can set your time zone. That's where you fix that. So yeah, I've had that problem too when I used to go back and forth to Colorado. Let me see if I can show you where that setting is. Hang on a second. Oh, where is that? Might be in your profile account settings. I think that's where it is. Yeah, it's under account settings. So it's here. So go to your account settings and then see the time zone right there. That's where you change it. You're most welcome. That has baffled me too. Don't feel bad. What would the question be? I got to fill. Oh, yeah, I did. How about that? Okay, let's protect that profit. When you're in the right spot, you can do that and not even worry about it. And we're going to we got 50 locked in. We took $50 profit. Okay, the question, Alfredo sent it to me privately. Here, I'll post it publicly so you can all see it. That was the question that he asked me. And yes, I got a fill. So that was a nice quick little winner there for what did we make on that one? It's like we took 4 ticks net, $50 before $4 commission. So again, you can maybe play this spot. That's the peak of the volume there. And the VWAP is above us. So, again, not a horrible spot to play, but it's nowhere near extreme. It's kind of, basically the bottom of value using SD1, but the bottom of the value area is way lower. It's the bottom of the session. So that's a dangerous one. But again, I got a fill last time. So by the way, that when that happens, that's the market's way of just kind of telling you, yeah, that was the right spot. You get a quick fill, you look over there, oh, it's profitable. That's what I mean when I say good trades work right away. Yeah, because I was helping you, Alfredo, I made money. Usually works the other way around. When I'm answering questions, I get off sides because I'm not paying attention. But hopefully we won't do that here. Straighten this out here. Let's make that 125 also just for symmetricalness. So this needs to be 20 because it's 3 characters. Okay, so the reason Jigsaw does that, Alfredo, is so a lot of people like to keep their domes just on Central Time, like Lee does that. So you can set it to the market, and no matter where you are, your Windows clock won't override it. That's the thinking. And it actually makes sense. Particularly Jigsaw is used in a lot of prop firms all over the world, real prop firms, not evaluators. And, like Apex, or not Apex, Axia, and they use it a lot. And, they want to have the Chicago time frame on their domes. And so that's why, and the news, same thing. So that's why Jigsaw does that. But again, it's nice you can configure it either way once you know where it is. Ooh, look at the liquidity. I'm right. My order is right on the liquidity in ES, which I put there because it was right on that biggest high volume node right there. So it looks like we might be finding some buyers down here. Let's see if we can kind of front run this spot just a bit. And again, these are minis, so I want to get filled and get profitable pretty fast. I'm not looking to scale this, but the way it's sweeping down, I think this is going to fill and give me a rotation up like that. So we can grab a quick winner like that. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I was just trading off of this is why I wanted the dome bigger, because I can see that high volume node and that high volume node. And they're big enough that they're worth watching. And again, this is why I don't use a POC, the quote unquote point of control, because it represents the highest volume, one spot. But in the futures, there can be a lot of spots with high volume that might be, one contract less than the POC, and that doesn't mean they're less significant. Oh, I'm right in the right spot here. So let's try again right here. Okay, now we might be able to catch a little bounce, but again, I'm not going to, there's the spot right there. It has to hold that spot. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be off sides here. So let's see if it does. All right, it tried to bounce there. It did bounce, not enough yet though. Let's get a couple of these off. I have 3 real quick. So there's 1 off, there's 2 off. Now we just have 1 left. Let's try to protect it, see if we can get up here. So we have a nice little long off 61 and a quarter. Now it's 63 and a quarter. Can I protect it? No, I tried to get 2 more ticks out of it. But so that's an example. Again, these are tactics. These are how you do it. And the strategy I'm explaining, I'm trying to take advantage of this liquidity down here. We trade down to it. It tends to hold at least for a rotation, even though we are drifting down. And maybe we'll get down here and it'll get much more interesting. But for now, just trading the rotations around the liquidity. That's all I'm doing. And again, don't try this with minis right away. It's something to practice. That way you can do it in sim with minis. It's again, once you practice it, it starts to really get visual for you. But until you do that, it will seem like, wait a minute, what's he watching? And if you watch the recording a couple of times and then try it, there's days when it's really predictable. Like right now, as I said, as we're getting closer to the close, it's getting a lot cleaner and more predictable. But earlier today, we had some crushing blows out of ranges. So far, I'm not seeing that kind of sudden sweep behavior that's so dangerous. So I'm watching the highest volume, high volume nodes, and I'm watching the liquidity. And again, what's important is not just the liquidity, but do we trade when we get down there, and then does it respond with the sellers being able to raise the prices back up? And that's exactly what's happening on these little. See how the book flipped over right here and the volume peaked? So there's all the tools right there saying, that was a good little spot to scalp that I was just scalping at. I muted myself? No, I didn't. I'm not muted. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like I'm recording sound here. So maybe you've got my sound off. Can anyone else hear me? Sounds okay. Yeah, I thought so because I can see the little VU meter bouncing. So yeah, you guys must have muted yourself, Chris. It was you. Okay. How dare you mute me? All right. So NVIDIA is continuing to be weak. It's now over 5% down. So that doesn't bode well for NQ. But the problem at NQ is, again, we're so much in the middle. We're nowhere near an extreme of any kind. And it was there. See how quickly it got to extremes, though? So if it decides it wants to go that way again, we could go that way really fast. That's my point. So I'm just not getting bold at all. And if we see some short squeezes down there, that'll be just the holy grail of tradable setups for today. So anyway, meanwhile, we're having fun scalping ES. And I know I was going to show you. So I don't have the POC turned on for the reason that I just said, the point of control. It's meaningless because it's the highest volume in the volume profile, but there can be many areas similar or close to it. So I'm going to turn it on just so you see what I mean. So here's the volume profile. I'll turn on the POC, which will be in purple. So it's right there. Oh, guess what? That was that's the spot I was playing. It turns out that is the POC. All right. But see what I mean? Here's a spot, just above it that's almost exactly the same volume. So that's why I don't use the POC. People ask me that all the time. But that's funny that that's what I was trading. And again, when stuff like that happens, you'll laugh at yourself, but you'll also realize that that means you know what you're doing. Because if you're trading the POC as an inflection point, that's like one of the original market profile inflection points. That's why it's called the POC, the point of control. It's the most volume. So that's where value is in control, but again, particularly in an instrument like NQ, there can be, 10 POCs all within 5 contracts of each other, and they're all just as meaningful. So in fact, let's go over there and look at that one and see where its POC is relative to these high volume nodes it's on. This might be it here, right below us. That would be a coincidence though, but it would be a funny one. Let's see. Volume profile POC. Yep, it's right there. So that's kind of why the market's hanging out here. It's just there's so much volume it's doing here. And if we can settle around here, then we could trade some larger size scalping ES. But so far, that's not happening. So we need to give it more time. Well, there's another attempt at pushing down over in ES. Let's see, again, if this relative area down here holds. And just to be clear, what I'm talking about when I say the liquidity holding, I mean this, okay? It's not one price. It's just a general area that's white because there's big liquidity there. And when we trade down to it, price reverses like it did here and like it did here and like it did here. And, you get my point. But this was the most obvious one right there. That one was pretty clear too. So that's what I'm talking about, just to make it easier to see. So again, that's kind of our theme today. We're going to talk in more detail about the tools, kind of more specificity, and some more examples as the conditions shift around on a day with, again, the context of the day is we have this giant range, and that's really dangerous because we're right around the middle high volume center of the range. And it could easily go 1% further down without even getting to the extremes yet. And so, that wouldn't be a significant move, but it sure would be significant if you were long. So you gotta respect this kind of day. Remember, in dynamic range thinking, tight range for the day, you can be more aggressive because it's unlikely to aggressively leave the range because it's a tight range. Big giant range for the day, you can play aggressively, but you want to do it when you're at one end or the other of that range. In the middle, it just, it could move a lot without meaning anything, and that makes risk management very hard. So that's kind of the guidelines on that. Let's see. Can you review where I get the news from? The news in this feed is built into Jigsaw. Jigsaw has a news feed function, and he just uses one of the basic services. I don't remember which one it is, but that's built into my platform. There are other platforms that will do something just like that. You can get a news feed. There's little studies you can get for Sierra that'll post them on your chart. Sachin is doing that. He's got them so on the footprint that he's trading off of, those things print there when they're coming up, and then they kind of cross out as they're passed. So yeah, Forex Factory, there's a bunch of stuff that does that. But this is actually built into Jigsaw. One of the Jigsaw tools, it's right on the toolbar, is this right here. And it's news and economic releases. This is the economic releases. I don't watch the news, just to be clear. I couldn't care less what's quote unquote in the news. But economic releases aren't the news. They're, a little less nonsense. News, by the time you see news, it's priced in. So there's no reason to have a news feed. But an economic calendar, that's important to have in front of you, so you know when, particularly in the morning before the open, when stuff's going on in Europe, and it's really important to see what's coming up, because that can create sudden sharp moves. And again, if you're just in the wrong position when that happens and you don't know it's coming, that's how you blow accounts up. And I've blown accounts up on that, real cash ones, not PAs or whatever. That you just have to respect that can happen. And also, when rumors hit the market, that can move things around. I don't know if I told you guys this story in this class yet, but I'll tell you real quick while we're waiting for something to happen. So in 2003, I was trading a big ES position, like 15 contracts, and they quote unquote captured Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora, which turned out to be wrong, but the market rallied like crazy, and I was short when it happened. And I went from being plus like $15,000 in that trade to being minus $30,000 instantly. I mean, just in a heartbeat. And I was like, deer in the headlights. And fortunately, I kind of kept my cool, and I ended up getting out of it with just a small loss, as it turned out to be a rumor, but it could have easily wiped my account out. And I had other instances like that wiped out smaller accounts, $5,000, $10,000 accounts. So again, it's not the news feed that you want. You want the economic releases calendar. That's what that is. I wouldn't watch the news while I'm trading, for the reasons that I just said. If something happens, you'll know it. The prices will reflect it. And again, you knowing what it is doesn't matter. It's how's the market reacting to it that you need to pay attention to. You can't second guess the market. So if the market decides something's bad news, you shouldn't look at your news feed and say, oh, why is that bad news? I mean, it's not up to you. What the market says is the only thing that matters. So that's the reason that most pros do not watch any sort of news feed. The news is priced in. But economic releases, because they come at certain times, you want to be out of the way or positioned advantageously at that time. And that's something different. Like knowing we have the earnings coming after the close. Again, that's not news, but that's on a calendar. And that's why we make such a big deal of that and the economic calendar at the beginning of the week in the IDE session. And we don't talk about news, but we talk about the potential that news could impact our trading, like the wars and all the geopolitical nonsense that's going on. So hopefully all that makes sense. If it doesn't, by all means, ask questions while we're waiting for something to happen. It's a good topic to chat about. How do you like this layout, though, from a student point of view? It's a lot easier to see, isn't it? Just to kind of see the detail. My screen less busy? Yeah, I figured you guys would. Oh, there we go. I think that's the one that Sachin is using, Billy. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find a snip of his. It's really cool, and it's one of those studies for Sierra Chart that is out in the public domain. All right, we're getting a little bit of downside momentum now, so we might be able to get a little more extreme here. Notice the VWAP is sloped down, though. So, volume is accumulating at the lower end of the range, which is going to pull extremes down, too. So, if we go down hard, don't expect the extremes to stay where they are. They're going to move away from us as we go toward them. It's kind of like, in science fiction, it's like light speed. You can't go that speed. You can go toward it, but as you get closer, it's harder to get to it. So you have to jump over it. That's the physics of light speed, right? So it's extremes are kind of like that. They move away as you get toward them, particularly when you're moving toward them with a lot of energy. So yeah, this is a really good layout for someone like you, Cal, that, is just getting comfortable with the tools and whatnot, because you can see the two primary instruments and you can kind of watch, YM on another screen. And if you decide you want to trade it, you know, change NQ to YM or change ES, I'd probably change NQ because those are two extremes. On a really crazy movement day, I want to trade NQ most of the time. But if YM is directional and trending, which today it's not, but if it was, with this kind of nonsense going on in ES and NQ, I'd be all over trading YM. So I'd make my left dome into YM instead of NQ. That's all. Just real easy to quick flip it. And maybe we'll get a chance to do that in some of the sessions we still have coming up. By the way, I posted an ad hoc for NFP for Friday. That's open to all of TRG. And at the moment, coaching group, there's an FOMC posted for you. I may open that up to everybody tomorrow. It's the Wednesday FOMC announcement, and that's fun to trade. But the problem is if I open it up to everybody and we do a session there, then we go into the close, we're going to be going like 2.5 hours, and that's really long. So yeah, my Thinkorswim template, I've actually shared it a bunch of times, Billy. I believe that's in the pit also, but let me find that share real fast. And if not, I'll share it again, but I'm pretty sure it's there. Let's see, templates. It would be under Docs TOS, TOS. So yeah, Docs TOS templates. Oh, that one's a year old. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me give you guys this one. Hang on a second. Shut up. Share workspace. Doc. August 2024. Okay, and then shared items. Where the heck are my shared items? I can never find this one. Here we go. There it is. Okay, so it's that link. So let's see. Controls. Okay, so I'm putting it in the pit right now in Docs TOS templates, and that will be the current one. So, and I'll also stick it in the chat here so you can just grab it there if you want. You're most welcome. All right, now let's put this all back. Okay. And that has this one in it too, which is really useful. This is a grid. Sometimes it's easier to load a grid separately. It'll come with the workspace, but that doesn't always work. So let's share this also. Just this. So doc for up with SDs. And share that. There it is. Okay. Yeah. The link popped up. I didn't click on it fast enough though. So let's see. Tools. All items. Doc for up with SDs. There it is. Come on. There we go. Control C. All right. I'll put that one also in the That's just the grid. Workspace above and below is for a grid with SD. Okay, they are all in this stream in the pit, which is the template stream. Can I explain how to read the candles on my TOS grid? Probably not. I'm not sure what you're asking specifically. Hang on. Where scan, visualize. Oh, come on. Where is this market watch? There it is. Okay. So what candles are you talking about? You mean when I put this up? Those are just equivolume candles. That's a plotting style where the width of the candle is how much volume it represents relatively. And then these are just the same SD, standard deviations of the VWAP. And then this is a custom study I wrote down here called RWI, the Random Walk Index. It's a crude trend indicator. That's all that is. Yeah, that's all it is. It's the same things that are on the Sierra chart version that's we're looking at here. Just it has that additional indicator RWI. If you're curious how that works, look at the explanation on the Investor RT page. This right here, I coded it based on that. So it's this right here. I'll put that in the chat also, if you're interested. So that's what's creating that plot at the bottom of this, except it's custom code, but the code's there. You can change it if you want. That's what's doing this at the bottom. It's a cool way to measure trends. It just measures price action against randomness, and it does it separately for up and down. So you kind of get a sense of the trend. Yeah, there's no wicks because they're equivolume bars. Equivolume bars, the bar width determines the volume, and there's no wicks. If they're hollow, that means less, but it represents volume by the width. See, some of the bars are wider and some are narrower. A wick would be a narrow bar. That's how it works. This is called an equivolume bar. Again, you can Google that. It's a style of plotting bars. I actually like it. I like it a lot in NinjaTrader. NinjaTrader does the best version of that, which is where I originally started using it. But I don't use Ninja anymore. So, and this is a crude version of it in Sierra. This is as good as Sierra gets at doing that, and it's not very good. But it's supposed to be the same idea. So it's not the fact that there are no wicks, it's that the width of the entire bar is the volume. So it's not a candle. It's a plot volume. Each bar is volume for that period. And if the bar is bigger and fatter and wider, it's more volume. And again, it's just relatively. So a bar twice the size of a previous bar is roughly twice as much volume, but then it gets exponential after that. So why did I stop NinjaTrader? Yeah, Equivolume in Ninja works much better. I don't need it anymore. It was the weakest link of all my platforms. I trade pretty much on Jigsaw and Sierra, and I coded most of my toss over, or that's what JVC did for me to move. Everything I have in toss, I have a duplicate of in Sierra, except for the heat map there that I get in toss. And I can get that on the web if I need it. So the idea was just to streamline and minimalist. Ninja, when it's working, it works fine, but sometimes it gets overwhelmed, and you got to keep it really clean. And I don't have negative feelings of Ninja, but if I don't have to use it, I don't. Sierra does a better job with footprints, and Jigsaw is a better trading platform for me. So that's the short and long answer. Yeah, you periodically have to clean out all of your NT volume and reload it from scratch, Donna. Otherwise, it does stuff like that. It's the database architecture in Ninja's crappy. It doesn't handle bid ask data well at all. It wasn't really designed for it, and they kind of kludged it when they did NinjaTrader 8. And Ninja has a very arrogant attitude about their platform. Lee and I tried to work with them as developers for a while, and they're just like, we're the cable company. We just give you a place to work. You can do whatever you want. The director of development literally said those exact words to Lee and I, and we were like gobsmacked. Like, what? And we were telling him that something doesn't work on their platform, and he was arguing that it was our indicator, even though we weren't using an indicator. It was literally just their platform. So we kind of, from a developer's point of view, we also got a little tired of them. Well, you still have to keep Windows and NT cleaned on even on a really fast, expensive computer. My computer wasn't cheap. They still require maintenance, and I don't do anything but trading on my trading computer. That's this one, and I teach on it. Everything else that I do on a different machine so that this doesn't get a lot of browsing cookies and all the temporary files. I clean all that crap out periodically, and it's a bunch of fast SSDs. So, the read write time is really good. It's on a very fast connection, and good video card. That's really the stuff you need. So let's see, what time is it? We're almost at the bottom of the hour. So let's see what the bottom of the hour does. Look at ES just kind of slowly drifting back up toward the VWAP. I've been watching it to see if there's any tradable spots, and there were. Look at each instance where it interacts with the liquidity. That's a good spot to get long. And then you want to take profits at the other side. You don't want to be shorting into this when it's at the other side of the liquidity, because that's where a short squeeze could develop. So this pattern continues, but you got to be really picky where you play it, because it's not always respecting the first spot where it's finding liquidity, but it's ultimately respecting the area of the first spot. And again, that's why the 1+1 kind of approach might make sense today. Okay, so look at how the liquidity is just kind of sloping up here in ES, and we're working our way up the range toward the VWAP, just kind of drifting up toward it. This is setting up for some short squeezes, but if we don't get a good entry here, like that would be the first spot I'd try again on the volume here. Let's see if it retraced to there, if the liquidity held. And then again, what is that? That's right around 70. Maybe you could play 70. Let's see how that works. But again, we're kind of putting ourselves at risk for an aggressive move down if I do that, because we're at the extreme end of the range. Again, that's why it's kind of, you want to try to get long at the other side, so at least you've got the rotation working in your favor. But it looks like it's going to go up still here. Let's see. Maybe get a tiny bit more aggressive to right there. That's 70.5. Again, if I can catch a rotation down to 70, I'll try to play it. It's at 72.5 right now, so. Yeah, Jigsaw does that too. And so does Sierra. If you update your BIOS, it will reset your ID, and you have to, let it redo your license. Basically, almost all platforms use that as the Mac ID is kind of their deciding if you're cheating or not. And a BIOS flash will cause that to happen. I just went through that a couple of weeks ago. We were in a live session and I had to redo it. Okay, here we go. I just got filled there on that push down. So let's see if that works. And that's at 70. And again, I'm willing to play a little lower down as well, but I should be able to catch a rotation up here, maybe up to here, or try to get under it if I can and see which happens first. So we'll try to get a stop under it if we can by a couple of ticks. And then maybe this pushes up a little higher. And again, I'll try to add to it if it doesn't go more than a few ticks into the 69 area here. But we ought to be able to get at least, the 4 ticks to there. That should be doable no matter what. That's a quick $50. So let's see what we can do here. All right, there's the push down. It filled me on the second one. So now it has to work or not. And let's take the first one off right there on 3 ticks. So it filled. Perfect. Okay, now let's get, oh, wow. Tried to get under it on 70. It traded all the way up to 71, swept right back down, and I couldn't get under it. So I did get one off profitably, but I tried to protect the second one, and it was no bananas on that. So I'm going to put a target up for the next move up and just take my profit and be happy with it. Because that was just too aggressive trading back into the range. Okay, now we can play one more there. Okay. Again, I got to try to protect this. But it's going to be hard to do. There we go. Okay, now we've got a protectable long off of 68 here. Got 8 ticks. That's $100. Boom. All right. See how tricky that is? But that's just tactics, just practice, just reading that and knowing how to respond. See, we just shook out the bottom of the range there, and it was enough of a snap that I could play there with the second entry. But again, you develop the skill by practicing, but that's a decent example of a tricky spot to play, and it playing out the way it should. Okay. So we passed the bottom of the hour and we got that little wiggle, but we're not really getting a particularly good set of setups here, but we are seeing some good examples of how to use tactics. So I'm going to continue on that train of thought. And if we get some more extremes, that'll be nice. But pretty much, we're respecting liquidity pretty nicely here in ES, as long as you don't let the first quick move shake you out. But again, that's a learned skill, so be careful. But I'm going to try to keep doing that just to keep showing you examples. The next spot down would be here at 67.5. Let's see if we can get a fill down there and try to scale it right there. So that's my 2 spots. We're filled. Okay, and let's just catch a quick pop up for another $50. And there it is. See what I mean? Use your dome as an ATM. I'd like a 50, please. Okay. So again, that spot's in play. See the little bottom there, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay in play. We've been lower even recently. So are you guys seeing what I'm doing there? I know it's, takes a while to get the hang of doing it, but is at least you seeing it? No, I'll never greedy in ES. 4 ticks is, hey, that's $50. Why? But remember what I've said all class about ES does these 3 and 4 tick rotations. So if you get 4 ticks, there's a really good chance it's going to rotate back to break even. So that's why I always take at least, the first one off there. 3 or 4 ticks is a golden spot, because you're letting the algorithms work for you, Chris, instead of the algorithms working against you. If you're mindful of those rotations, it'll keep you from letting the algorithms pull you off sides, and you'll realize it's an opportunity to trade with them. But again, they can shift their behavior quickly too. So, you can't just follow one technique. You've got to adapt your tactics to the conditions as they're changing. And that's the practice element right there. But yeah, 4 ticks is a beautiful scalp in ES. I mean, heck, if one lot, it's $50 every time you do it. And if you can do that with any sort of consistency, you can make a really nice living with ES. But the trick is not to get greedy. And if you catch a runner, great. There was a couple times today NES where I got like 10-point runners, but I didn't set out to do that. I was in a spot, I scalped, it started to go, I got a little bit of it off, I protected the rest, and it just kept going. And that's the way as a scalper I want to try to catch bigger trades. I don't want to try to force my opinion on the market. So okay. So let's see if we get that situation again. Maybe we will. Again, that same spot right down there could get interesting right into here. So there's 67.5. This would be 6. So that one's too early. It's not rotating from there. This one would be in the liquidity and below the last rotation. So might be able to grab it there. Let's see. Hoping we get short squeeze setup going here, but so far it hasn't really started to, even though we've got a decent cumulative delta to the downside. It's not as big as it could be to the downside, but it's enough. It could influence some squeezes. So again, we'll continue working on tactics. We're trading ES on the right and contractor 2 or 3 on the left. We're doing micro MNQ for NQ, and we'll do up to 10 micros there per our course title, but there has not been a good setup over there yet. It's just got too big a range. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning. It's a 500-point range today. So you really got to be at some sort of inflection point to play NQ. Otherwise, if it starts another one of those sharp moves down, you could just instantly be 100 points off sides without even blinking. And in ES, that's setting up a decent trade if it does it. But in NQ, no, not with tech as weak as it is today. So we'll see. It might be rotating down to me again over there on ES. I'm watching, petting the dog and sitting a few feet away. Let's see if that rotation down where I have my 2 orders, if we rotate down there again, and so far that area has held pretty well all afternoon here. So it's not a bad spot to try to get along on again, particularly with the VWAP above us. It's been trying to go that way, kind of dribbling. The internals stopped getting worse, but again, they're not really improving. They opened strong, kind of got floppy, almost flat. And now we're kind of improving a little bit again on the equity side. So that's kind of lackluster, but it seems like the heavy selling is at least, if not over, it seems like it's paused. I think it's over, but I'll conclude that after the session. For now, I'll just say it's paused. Let's see if this ES trade can come down to me where those orders are. You can see I'm right on that first chunk of volume that traded a while ago. But so far it starts teasing that it's going that way and then it starts going back up. So could be along right here on this big bump of volume. But that's so much harder to manage the risk of from here. A little move down that we can buy that holds is a much better idea. So there's a big chunk here of volume, but what's the lowest we've been recently? Right there. So what's that? 68.5. Oh, I suppose we could try 68 quarter, maybe. That's kind of in the middle of the quarter numbers, though, which is never a good idea. So let's try a little lower down. Here it comes. Okay. Traded to 68. Should have left it where I had it, and I would have been filled. All right. Let's see if we can get a fill here. There's 68 again. We filled. That's 67.5. We filled. Okay. Now, if we get any sort of move back up into this bump, we're in good shape, but I'm going to scale it more further, not down there, but it's got to hold this general area first. Otherwise, I'm not going to scale it at all. Let's try to get one of these off as usual. And then maybe we'll get a runner with the other one. And I'm still going to try to stake out right there on another push down. So that one's about to fill, I think. Not yet. It's scooted. Oh, I was about to scoot it up, but it filled. Okay, so we got a little bit of profit to work with here. Can't really protect it. There we go. Let's push that up, try to get under it. Okay, now we've got $100. Perfect. Lock in 62 and it sweeps down to us. So again, that was 6 ticks, 5 ticks net after I moved it up. So I'll take it. Again, good spot, but you got to be really nimble here and be prepared to play. Okay, can I get a fill again? I did at 67.25. Can we catch another pop up to here? There's $50 right there. Can I have a $50 bill, please, Mr. Dome? Let's move this down a little bit. There we go. Here comes our $50 bill, and boom, $50. Okay, so that's boring. Profitable, but it's boring. Good trades are boring, you know? It's kind of the way it works. Let's see if it. So these are just rotations back and forth. It's not going anywhere. It's just rotating 3 or 4 ticks at a time. And so that's all I'm doing is trading the rotations. And I'm prepared for it to overshoot the rotation a little bit. And that's because that's not unusual for it to do that. So, and I'm only playing on the long side because of the potential of a short squeeze here. So that's the tactics. Yeah, being boring is really good. Is NQ liquidity ever like ES? No, it's never that thick. It sometimes gets more readable, but on a day like today, it's going to be more sporadic. On days where it's got a really clean range and a really symmetrical profile, you'll see a lot clearer where the liquidity is. But today's too erratic for that. So yeah, we should, once we clear some of the news events this week, we should see some better examples of what it looks like later in the week. Okay, I just got long again over here at 67.25. So again, let's see if we can catch a quick 4 ticks or so. It's about to fill the second one. Nope. Wow. Traded all the way back up and it didn't fill that one. Let's see if we can get it on 3 ticks this time. Nope. Wow. So 4 ticks, 3 ticks, I can add to it. Now I can. Nope. Still can't get that filled there. Okay, so we should be able to, now we'll get it. Okay, now we can catch the second move up and take one off as usual. Maybe catch a runner, wash, rinse, repeat. Get ready to scale a little bit here if we can. Nope, it's going to go up, not down. Okay. Protect it, and we take it. Wash, rinse, repeat. Yeah, a good tight day is what we're looking for liquidity and NQ to be clear. If you crunch it more, it's easier to see. I've got it crunched 2-to-1 right now. Watch what happens if I crunch it 4-to-1. Then it becomes, it looks like ES. The trouble with crunching it that much is you can't place your orders discriminately enough. You know, it's one point at a time, which is 4 ticks. So excuse me, but watch when it plots the liquidity. You'll see it much clearer with this level of crunch. It'll be easier to see. Or, you know, not much, it'll be easier, but still see the pattern isn't nearly as thick, but at least you can see where it is. You see what I mean? But then it's not tradable with 1 tick at a time or 1 point at a time because it's going to move too much. You can't get your order in where it needs to be. So that's why I kind of compromised and keep it on 2 ticks crunch. Even though I crunch my footprint 4 ticks, but on the other monitor, but the trading dome I crunch 2, and that's about as good as it gets being able to read it. Well, let's see here. We have a few minutes more until we get the 10-minute wiggle. So I don't know. The day could be winding up here with a whimper instead of a bang. I'm going to put these back on 3 minutes so we can kind of see the boundaries of the ranges a little better. Wow. I don't see a good trade either way. We're just drifting up to the VWAP there. Again, that we just had another great little short squeeze over there in ES. So those little longs off of liquidity are the right answer to be playing right now. Those are working. We just did what, 8 of those in a row, and they all worked profitably. Most of them were at least $50. A couple of them were more than that. Only one was less than that. So, that adds up really fast when you do that. If you do it in the, in an appropriate size account and do it at the right time of day, like now, which is why we're doing this class. It's a really good time of day for that particular tactic that I was just showing you in ES, and I will hopefully show you some more. I'm hoping it's going to drift back down to that high volume node we were on before, and maybe we can start playing again. But up here, it's too close to the VWAP now. It's kind of like the setup already happened a couple of times. I don't want to get greedy and keep trying it. Good girl. Yeah. I'm petting doggies. I have a very sweet Aussie doodle here with me. Yes, I do. What's a good girl? All right. If you really want to see NQ crazy, try the dome with no crunch. So not even 2-to-1. This is 1-to-1 here. And you'll see really crazy movement. That's not crunched at all. So talk about not being able to see where the liquidity is or what price levels are in play. I mean, it's just constantly in motion and not always clearly which way it's going. See what I mean? So that's the argument to crunch it at least 2-to-1. See, it'll work around like 4 ticks back and forth going nowhere. And it's easy to get caught up in that when you do tick by tick like this. It does highlight the momentum better, but you got to really be careful because you just can't see the boundaries of liquidity. It's moving too fast. So again, let's put it back to 2 ticks, and I think that's a acceptable compromise. Is really the only way to look at it. I used to actually run 2 domes next to each other with one 4-to-1 and one 1-to-1. If you look at some of the old videos, you'll see that. And the problem with that, again, is too much information. You can see the 1-to-1 moving and you can see the liquidity on 4-to-1 and your brain's going back and forth saying, okay, where are the boundaries? And, and it just, it's overwhelming information. So the trick with NQ is to try to pare down what it's telling you to be digestible. And that can be tricky. Yeah, really nice short squeeze on ES. We plowed right through the VWAP and we're still going. So again, that's why I was looking for longs down there. Every now and then you get lucky and you'll be in the trade when one of those wicked ones comes and you'll be ahead by 10 points instantly. And that's kind of cool when that happens. There we go. There's another one right there. See, you can't miss them when they're happening. Now we're up into the out of the value area. So I wonder how far this is going to go. I wouldn't short it, but that's our 10-minute wiggle anyway coming up here. But again, short squeeze. That's why if you remember nothing else from this class, short squeezes at the close on down days are a license to make money. Just find inflection points and get long on the closes of down days like this. It's much more likely to be favorable that way. The exception is if it's just trending so strongly that it just keeps taking the low out over and over again. But we weren't even down 1%, just a huge range. So you got to respect that's over. We're not going down anymore. And that's the problem with trending indicators. By the time they turn over, you've already missed the stuff like the short squeezes. For example, if you look at the trend indicators on that plot that I shared, the one in Thinkorswim, See, they just rolled over here on this 5 minute plot to being positive after the short squeeze happened. Even if you watch them on 1 minute, they're always late to the party, no matter how good the code is. See, this is 1 minute, and it just kind of caught up with the idea that there was a long there. And so that's the trouble with technical analysis, and particularly any sort of trending tools in futures. By the time a trending tool fires, the move is probably long over. Wow, we're still short squeezing. We could get all the way back to 5,500 here if this keeps going. It's not that far away. It's right up here. So again, if you found a place to join this, by all means, join these squeezes. I'm not going to chase it. But yeah. And again, I could have titled this class, trading short squeezes at the close. But, if you don't get one, the other setups give you something good to do, particularly trading tight for ticks on a tight range day. And hopefully we'll get one of those, maybe Thursday or Friday after all the news. Maybe it'll tighten up. We'll form another apex. We're still inside that range that we've been kind of working on all week. Remember, I talked about this morning. We're still working this last apex, and we haven't really broken out of it one way or the other yet, but we're spreading it out. So remember, apexes come to a point, don't spread out. So volatility is increasing here, and a lot of that's because of the calendar and all the news we have coming. So again, ranges are going to be suggestions until there's some sort of real clear volume to confirm a range or to violate it. So I know that's a lot of information, but it's really useful bits and pieces that over time you'll kind of assimilate into your head by hearing it over and over. And this really does become very predictable and easy to see your setups if you practice it a lot. I mean, it's not hard for me to sit here and find setups over and over again, particularly if I don't have to explain them while they're happening. Like there's another potential short squeeze going right over here. Let's see if this pulls back at all. Remember, relentless bid is what a short squeeze is. Can it hold the top of value here? Let's see, maybe. But when a short squeeze ends, we can reverse really hard. So you don't want to, get too ambitious. But what time is it? We still have a few minutes. Yeah, the VWAP's too far down. I'm not going to try that one. See how, that I looked at that after we started to pull back and said, yeah, not worth the risk of coming back there. But if I see a squeeze forming, I'll jump in and join it. Like it might be one right here. Let's see. What is that, 87? Kind of running out of time for this to develop here. Maybe down there now. Yeah, no, now we're going back in the range. I wouldn't try that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly correct. Yeah, no, you don't think ahead. You just try to get you want to be in the position when you see the short squeezes coming, and you'll get to the point where you'll see that, particularly on a less crazy day than today. And you get your position on and you're instantly profitable. That's when that happens, you're in short squeeze territory. And look at this pushback down to that's why when the squeeze ends, it ends. Look what's happening now. So yeah, you never want to try to ride them. You just, when they end, they end. But the trick is getting on board. It's one of those, find a place to grab a handle and hold on. But if you can see it happening, right as it's forming, that's the ideal spot to get the trade on, because then you're only taking a tick or two of risk. And if you're reading it right, you'll be 3 or 4 ticks profitable almost instantly. And if you can do that with a couple of contracts, then you're in a really good spot to get one off, protect the other one. And, I had that, there was a trade of 6 months ago on a closing Friday that I did that, and it went 60 handles. It was 240 ticks. It was ridiculous. I mean, it just kept going. And luckily, and we were doing a live session and I got in it and I thought, oh, wow, this is crazy. I took profit and we ended the session. And then after the settlement, it kept going. It went 40 more points. I mean, that does happen. So it's good to be aware that that's in the realm of possibilities, and particularly at the close. That's when you see that happen the most. It can happen based on news or events during the day, but at the close, it happens because people are off sides. It's a fear and greed thing at the close. During the day, it's usually sinister. Fade 18. All right, let's see. What do we got? 5 minutes left. I don't know if there's going to be any other good trades here today. We have earnings after the close today, as we said, and it's a couple of decent ones. Let's see. AMD, Microsoft are the two. Maybe Electronic Arts. Let's see what time those are. It's worth staying open until then. Okay, AMD's at 415, Microsoft's at 410, Starbucks is at 405, Pinterest is at 405, Arista Networks is at 405, First Solar's at 4 o'clock. Ooh, that's right at the close. Electronic Arts is at 405. Yeah, there's a couple of them right on the close. So let's stick around for a few minutes today and see what happens. Step on you, puppy. You're right underfoot as usual. I see you, big dog. I know. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your sister. You can wait patiently, both of you. Yes. Oh, don't bite me. Sit down. Okay, I'm going to close the door now. You guys can wait outside there. All right. Hmm. All right, so close in 3 minutes, and then we start getting news almost immediately. So, news in the form of earnings. So, just for fun, let's watch the reaction. It could get pretty crazy. And I may or may not trade the craziness. In this account, I can trade, into the settlement if I want to. I'm in cash accounts. So we'll see. I may or may not do that, but it could get, with those all coming up in the first 5 minutes, there's like five big names. And so it could get very interesting, particularly one right on the top of the hour. I love when somebody schedules right at the close. And today, that's a name that can move us around. It's one of those, meme names. So let's see what it does. Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, it's open Q&A, as it always is in this class. We're informal, so if you have anything you want me to discuss, I will while we're waiting for 18 for Cal to short it. You should add that to your pre-flight introduction for your passengers, Cal. Hi, I'm Cal. I'm your captain today. I'll be shorting 18. Okay, good push down. So let's see if it gets any traction. We're closing right 45 seconds. We're right on the VWAP again. That's why trying to get long up there could have been very dangerous. And we're going down pretty good here. Earnings coming up. Let's put these back on 1 minute so we can see fast bars. Okay, boy, some decent downside momentum here. Look at this. Wow. God, that top of value would have been a nice short. Oh well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Look at this. Here we go. We're about to close. We closed, and now we're going to get earnings, and this should be fun. Let's reset the volume and watch the show. Okay, the market liked that, whatever that was. Didn't like that. Yeah, Microsoft is at 410, but there's a couple before that. Whoa, look at this. Boy, something came out and we're way down. Look at this. We blew through the low. Actually, we didn't make the low in NQ. I take that back. It just felt like it. We're only back at SD1, just massive range here. Zoom is throttling my DOMs a little bit. So if it's jerky, that's why it's jerky at my end too. So these bars aren't keeping up on my ninja plots either for some reason. How can we fix that? Let's see. I don't know why those aren't keeping up, to be honest. They should be. That's weird. Look at that. It's not painting that properly. Let's see if it does 5 minutes properly. Wow, we're pushing down hard. Wow, that's really weird. My Sierras are not painting right at all in this movement. They're not keeping up. We're all the way down at SD2 now, and the plots aren't showing that. But if you look on here, you can see it. This is correct. You can see we're right there in all three except R2Y. But it's not showing up on the Sierra DOMs, and I don't know why that is. That's weird. Oh, I guess those are set for RTH because they're gapping off of RTH. That's why those stopped moving. Okay, so disregard those. We'll have to just watch it on here. So let's take these to 1 minute. We can see it clearly. Yeah, this will be a better place to watch it. Curious to see if there's any liquidity under ES at all. Here's the ES down over here. What do we get down to 36? That's still not the low of the session. It's right on it. Yeah, it's right on it. Boy, it left a lot of holes on the way down. There could be a long scalp right here. I'm going to take an ES long and just try it, but it might be a falling knife if it gets going down anymore. So let's see. Okay, protect it. Oh, hello. That's a nice little move. Long at 35, it's trading 39, so I got a 4-pointer there. That was cool. I just was trading that off of the liquidity and the traded volume at the low. I wouldn't recommend doing that because it could take this low out still. But yeah, these aren't going to update because they end at the end of regular trading. I forgot that JVC coded them that way. So my Sierra chart ones aren't, my 1 minutes aren't going to apply here. But the LRCs are still going. So I'm watching a duplicate of this on my other screen, and we're right at SD2 here. And we still have more earnings coming, so. Yeah, those are on RTH. That's why. Yeah, that's how he's doing the gaps because I had him plotting the gaps, and so it ends at regular trading hours. The cash close, and then it reopens when the session reopens on these. But on my domes, I'm not doing that, and on the 15-second LRCs, it's not doing that either. So those are still plotting. And on these, it's the Globex session, so it'll go for another 45 minutes. Alrighty, so let's see what time is it. We're 5 minutes in. We might as well wait and see if we get Microsoft at 4:10, and then we'll wrap up. Oh, they reported. Okay, there it is. All right, never mind. I guess we got it. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up then. Are there any questions or comments? That was fun. It was an interesting day. Got to do some short squeezes. Probably see a lot more of that as we get news tomorrow. And tomorrow's FOMC, and then we have numbers on Thursday, and then we have NFP on Friday. Fasten your seatbelts. We're just getting started this week, and that's why we scheduled the class now. It's just ideal time. We get to see so many different sets of conditions. So I'm gonna close up my screens and take a break and take the pups for some exercise. So, are there any questions or comments as I shut everything down? Get rid of this. And okay, thank you. Yep, you're welcome. And I'll see you guys Thursday for trading the open and tomorrow for the close. And we'll see about FOMC. I may add it on. I'm going to try, but it probably won't. But watch for announcements. The coaching group, you already have an announcement on that subject. All right, see you guys later.